Alright, so this video we're going to be talking about the rear end and what's kind of the plan for the rear end of the car. Like I said before, it's a Speedway Motors 48-inch wide Ford 9-inch with a nodular iron third member. It's a 350 to 1 gear. That was to try and keep the RPMs down, doing some street driving with this 28-inch tall tire, which keeps it in the small tire, 10.5 wide. Here I just got some cheap, I think they're Vision wheels. It's one of the cheaper ones with some real cheap tires for now, just for a little tread. I live on a sand trail, so I needed something to be able to drive the car up the hill. As you can see, the axles are Quick Performance 35 spline, and then with a Quick Performance brake kit. Just went cheap for now, non-slotted rotors. We had a warm-up the other day, and as you can see, the third member, the brake calipers rusted real bad, so I'll definitely have to get a coat of paint on the third member. I guess I could try and paint the brakes, but I didn't think they were going to rust like that. So Quick Performance axles. I was planning on going with the Speedway Motors ones for the 35 spline, cut to length ones. But on the website, they say in the fine print of the description, luckily, that the 35 spline does not work for the 48-inch wide axle, which saved me some time, money, hassle, realizing that it doesn't work. The one end, the splines end up being too short and won't have as much engagement as you need, I believe. So with the Quick Performance axles, I ended up getting everything with it. Bearings and studs already pressed in. One thing when ordering these axles, when you're doing the studs here, as you can see, I just have nuts and washers on them right now, and I'll explain why. A standard road wheel is typically a 60-degree angle here, and a fine thread. Not thinking when I bought these and just doing it quick, I clicked coarse thread, which typically is for like dirt track and has a 45-degree. So I have to get special lug nuts. And luckily I found some on Summit, and it seems to be the only company that makes them. And they are a coarse thread 60-degree. And I think they're $80 for 20 of them. So that sucks, obviously. I paid double the price, and I can't go anywhere and just get a lug nut. So I'll definitely have to keep some extras on hand, which I'll only be using 10, so I should have 10 extra. But in a drag and drive event, if I lose one, I'll have to definitely make sure I keep some on hand. So I will cut the video here in a second, and I will actually put the axle into the car here. I got it on dollies, and I'll kind of show you the plan for the suspension setup. It's going to be 4-link. I was doing some research today on panhard bars of different options I can do. With what I'm doing, it's kind of going to be a tight setup, but I think I got something planned out, hopefully. Alright, got the axle in the car, pretty close, just eyeballing it. You guys can kind of get an idea here on what I'm dealing with. So I've kept the stock outer wheel well. Just for safety, I might fold this in a little bit. See if I can zoom in. I can gain another ½ inch or so, just if I'm feeling nervous. So I cut the stock wheel well out. Fortunately, this one was when I was kind of first cutting it out and wasn't really sure what I was doing. So I kind of hacked this away and got it real thin here. But I left this lip here for the tubs. So this will kind of be my edge I can weld to and tack everything in place. I've just been kind of cleaning that up recently. This actually probably has to move back a little bit from where it's sitting now, but this is just plastic here, and then you can see it gets pretty close in the front there. I'm looking at, let me zoom out, looking at about 6 inches of travel total. This isn't quite sitting at ride height. It needs to go a little higher, make it fit in there a little better. But to give you an idea on what I'm doing for suspension here, I have some cardboard cutouts, but I'm now realizing a magnetic little phone holder for recording would be really nice in this situation, so I'll have to get one of those in the future here. But I was planning on copying Tin Soldier's no prep or low horsepower 4-link brackets and kind of customizing them to my own profile and height to make it work. Would have been a little cheaper to have them cut myself, but then once you add hardware and everything else, it's kind of a wash. Theirs kind of has a cutout here, and there's some missing geometry and holes for bars, but this is essentially a simple version of what it looks like. And then the difference with their low prep one is you can see here that the bottom one is longer than the top. So this would sit, I believe it's going to sit kind of down in here. Yeah, definitely need a little tripod thing. But sit down in here like so. I might have to shave a little more of this floor away, but to get it fit in there. But essentially like that. And then because the one is longer than the other, from what Tin Soldier Racing explains, it actually makes the rear end react quicker and presses the rear end, whether it's squat or anti-squat, but presses the rear end down quicker and harder. And they consider this good for low horsepower cars, which I can't believe I'm saying this, but they consider low horsepower 1,500 or so below. So it's majority of people. So I think that kit in the mild steel comes in at around $1,000, which sucks obviously price wise, but with the unique design, and that comes with all the hardware, all the linkage and everything, Heim joints, and then just with the crazy adjustability. You can see here I'm just using a spare axle bracket. They gave you 2 different ones for the axle housing. I'm just using that as a weight so it sits nice and straight here. And then on the back side here, there should be a bunch of holes, and that's where I end up putting a bracket off and then mounting the coilovers. I'm looking at running a QA1, was it the promo line? I think the number, I was looking at double adjustable, which I know isn't the most budget friendly, but it's not that much more for double adjustable, and I know it'll be that much better in the long run. I think they're D for double adjustable, and I think I'm going with, can't remember if it's 701 or 702s. One is the bearing and one is the bushing, is the difference between the two. And I believe I have to go with the bearing one for horsepower and 2 for the holes and the brackets and everything to line up. The bushing one has a bigger bolt, I think, going through it. Either way, I have it all documented, but there's one doesn't quite work. Oh, it's not the bolt size, sorry. It's the width of the actual shock. With the bushing one, it's wider. So yeah, that'll probably be, it'll actually probably be pretty close right in here. So obviously you can see there's a giant gap between the two frames here. Starting to clean up the back here. This will be, I'll have a tube running all the way across into here, welded. Unfortunately, I can't do it here. It'd be a lot easier, but with it not being a full tube and actual, really, that structural, it's going to be down here. I still plan to have the floor at stock height sitting up here, but I'm going to have the frame rail come here. It's going to angle up and go flat, level with this here, and then come here, angle back down, and then get welded to the side of this tube. And I'm starting to make a bracket here that matches the profile of the curve of the floor. And what that's for is just adding a little strength and thickness. And what I'm going to end up doing is I won't really be able to weld in there very well. I'm going to cut slots in here and pretty much plug weld it to the unibody, and then put the piece of square tubing. Got a bunch of it cut to what I think I need. I have to do all the angles still, but it's just 2x3 1/8 wall tubing picked up from a local steel supplier. I went through Jacqueline, could have gone through Alro. To kind of give a better idea here, this will be the front of the car with that bracket. Not even bracket, I guess, plate. I talked about the curve, and that's the general profile. So in between the two rails here, if I can zoom out, I'm going to have a bar running across, and that's going to line up pretty close to where the shock's going to be, and then I'm going to mount the shocks to that. I think I'm going to actually have it back further than the shock, and then have the shock mount. Yeah, this would be where. So I'll have the shock mount. I don't know how to hold this, but in front of this bar here. And then so I'll have plenty of clearance at the top still for the floor to sit, and things can pivot. I'll be at the bottom of the tube instead of sticking out the bottom, and then I lose clearance. Like I said, I was trying to figure out the pan hard bar today. I have a bunch of points or whatnot on Speedway motors that then expire here in the next week. So I was looking to maybe get a pan hard bar, but I don't think it's going to work without having everything in place. I was looking at getting a universal one, but I really don't know the length yet. So as you can see here, and then the bars that be coming up, I can't really do a pinion mount one and then up to the frame, because I'm worried about it getting too close to the upper bar, which might still be an option. There's also the option of doing it on the third member. I don't know how I feel about that, undoing these since they're already torqued down and everything. And that wasn't a great time kind of getting that in. I guess I can talk about that here in a few minutes. Little tips that I found. So was talking with a coworker today. I was thinking maybe putting it up here just so I had clearance over. I can't do it. A lot of cars you'll see it on the backside, but with the shocks and everything, it's not really an option. So I was talking to him. I was like, hey, going here and then going over, which would only give me about a 15-inch panhard bar, which ideally you want it as long as possible, which that's only giving me, half the width. And he mentioned, which I really like, is actually would be mounting to the shock mounts. So if my shock's down here, the brackets come out in the shock, which tin soldiers, imagine this being notched off, but there's still holes here. I can make a custom bracket here that bolts into the top holes of the shock, and I can make something kind of fancy. I can, probably 3D printer, model something up that raises it up and kind of, try and clear this, go over, or at least back a little to clear, and then run all the way to this side, which would give me, I think I did the math, it was going to be like a 22 to 24 inch or something panhard bar, which is a lot better. And then I'm not actually welding to the housing, which I don't have anything against welding to it, but I like the idea of bolting if it doesn't work or I need to change something. It gives me a little more flexibility. Yeah. So hopefully that'll work there. I think this is going to be the big thing I'm working on, is trying to get all the steel welded in this spring. Now that it's starting to get warm. As you can see, kind of cleaned up swept a little and started cleaning up a little when it was warm out. But getting a rolling chassis would be ideal. This car has been sitting here for a very long time. It would still sit here, but, the option to roll it out if I needed to work on something else. So like I said, I'm going to have the piece of tubing running here. As you can see, it kind of hacks stuff away. Hey, Rim. I actually cut all this out with a Sawzall using not even a metal blade, using a wood blade that's made for wood and nails. Thing ripped through it all. It was quite violent, nothing pretty cutting wise. The cutoff wheel kind of sucked. I was starting to do with the cutoff wheel here and get things a little cleaner, but when I was hacking through all this, it was just Sawzall. It made it quick work. I actually destroyed one of my batteries, kept coming out, and ended up falling and cracking and breaking, but oh well. But once this is all cleaned up and I figure out how I want to do it, I'll have another bar running across here, and I'm actually going to have a hitch going through. These cars didn't have a hitch on some of them. This one didn't come with one, so it is what it is. I'm sure it wasn't rated worth anything either, so I will make my own and kind of mount it all to the chassis. As I mentioned here, I didn't have the best of luck. Let me turn this for you here. Best of luck getting this third member in. Definitely wasn't bad, but I also didn't really know what I was doing a whole lot. So it comes with all the T-bolts you need. It doesn't come with a gasket, which is fine. And what I didn't know, it doesn't come with nuts, the fine thread nuts, lock nuts, or the crush washers. So I had to order those and wait for those to get in before I could assemble this. What I'm about to tell you probably wasn't the correct way to install this, but it worked. I'm sure they have a fancy tool or something out there to do this a little better, but these are T-bolts that go in from the underneath, and They're essentially press fit in. And so I didn't have anything to really press them in. Obviously, with it being in here, you can't really get a hammer and pound it in. So I got a hammer in there, just tapped it in just enough to hold it in place. And then I took a pair of channel locks and locked in on the T so I could hold it. And then I actually took, I think it was 3 or 4 washers that I had, greased them up and everything, made it good on the housing, and then took 2 nuts and sat there and threaded it in with the ratchet in a deep well, so both nuts were lined up and had a little gap so they weren't fighting each other, and slowly pulled these up one by one. That worked all right until I went to set this in. I believe it was one of these top 2 here, both of them. There was a couple of these here that didn't quite line up. And I don't know if that was with the method of me not having them perfectly straight or whatnot. So I think I ended up doing a slight bit of clearance and a little tapping with a hammer, unfortunately, to kind of tweak these just enough to set it in. I got it good enough where I set it in, pulled it back out, put the gasket in there, and then started torquing everything down. I went with a gasket because that's what it recommended on the website. If you watch some other videos on YouTube of installing them, certain manufacturers are using silicone and just running a bead of silicone all the way around it. A lot of people say these leak. A lot of people say this works fine, so we'll see. I'll gamble with the gasket first. It seemed more correct. But putting it in, just like any other video or anyone will tell you, it's a standard 9-inch thing here. These 2 here with the machined out little pocket there, you have to, you can see here, you have to set this in about halfway and then start the nut and then set it all the way on. You can't get the nut on when it's set all the way in. With this curve, it's just too tight. So be warned on that. I mean, it's not a huge deal. I was just doing it all by hand. Didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was. I probably could have used straps or something come along to have this hanging and kind of work it in, but or have this hanging stationary and put this on the jack stand or something and then push this up into it, but it is what it is. Another thing, when torquing these crush washers down, off the top of my head I forget the actual torque, but you can see right there that one's kind of split. They give a torque spec to crush those washers, and the first one I did, I went to spec and it instantly split the washer. So these aren't torqued as tight as recommended because it, like this one, it split the washer. If it ends up leaking there or something, I can easily pull this one off, and is what it is, I guess, at that point. Again, with these 2 here, kind of did all these, kind of went in a star pattern, but these ones you can't get a socket on either, so you kind of have to use your best judgment on feeling what the torque is on these and use an open end wrench on this one and that one. Yeah, I mean, back to the body kind of side of things. Mentioned I'm tubbing it just for clearing the wheel. You can see here The wheel well went to about here, so obviously there was not enough clearance. And then if you look down, I'd be hitting frame. So doing tubs, this side's a little cleaner on the, I cut it a little straighter. You can see I still have to clean this side all up and get all the paint and undercoating off. I love that this car's undercoated extremely well. It sucks for cleanup, I can tell you that much. There's just so many layers and a ton of it. For the tubs, let me climb out of the car here. This is a section cut out of a 55-gallon drum that I got free. I figured it would work. You have to, the original goal was to hope to keep the bottom on it and then have the circle and essentially the whole rounded shape and the inner wall of it, but it wasn't a big enough diameter. I probably should have done the math kind of on it, and not quite the right shape. I think in hindsight, I probably could have left the bottom on and then cut it here and then opened it up and then kind of welded in pieces. I may do something different. I may end up getting different steel, but one of the main things of what I wanted was this rolled edge there for a little extra structure. There's the other part there. Here in a few seconds, I will throw up a screenshot of kind of the build sheet for the rear end so far. Probably do a voiceover explaining a few things. I know I have to go through and update a few things to make sure it's all good for you guys. Obviously, it's a continuous list, but let's try this again with my microphone on. So I said I'd show my build sheet, and I'll just go through the rear end tab down here. You can see I got rear end, fuel system, transmission, cooling, steering, safety, turbo and exhaust, interior, and oil. And within those, there's kind of subsections, kind of like here. I have the, let's see, I have the rear axle in the top part, and then the rear suspension. There'll obviously be front suspension, if need be. And then obviously fuel system, there's the fuel management and fuel pump and all that stuff. So there's subsections in each one, but as I've done this, I've just kind of tried to organize it a little bit. So you can see the rows here. Column A is the part itself, just a generic description, the cost per part, the quantity, and then the total of the quantity and cost per part. E is if I've bought it or not. This column is specifically what it is, the name, model number, size, and then if there's a link, and then if there's any special notes or things I need to remember. First two here you can see is tires and wheels. Looking at this right now, I'm not sure if those are correct. I feel like they're not. But maybe. I just got those from Discount Tire. And you can see the tire size. The axle housing, axles are from Quick Performance, housings from Speedway, like I said, third members from Speedway. So I have brake in here. I'm gonna say that doesn't cost anything, but I wanted to make sure I put it in there because Speedway has a great document showing or describing the break-in and everything. And once I get to the break-in, I will probably share this document within the video, and then I kind of have put in part of the document that was important. Over here, the notes. You can see here I've bought almost everything other than lug nuts and oil. And I should add in here a plug for the third member to hold the oil. But so far I've estimated it's going to cost me $2,934. I've bought $2,878 of that. So I'm real close, obviously. More than I expected a little bit. I was expecting more to be, I think, around the 2,500 mark, but is what it is, I guess. Down here you can see I got the 4-link kit from Tin Soldiers. 1,000. The rear shocks, like I said, is the Proma DD701, which is the double adjustable, and the length's 13 to 19 and a half. So that gives me, what, 6.5 inches of travel. The springs, I know they have to be 2.5 diameter and 14-inch, but the actual size of them, I'm not sure. Bump stops, limit strap, lower shock mounts, panhard bar mount, and then drive shaft and drive shaft loop. I'm actually going to need limit straps because the goal is to have the car set up with anti-squat. So when I launch off the line, the car will actually raise the rear end instead of squatting down. And I'd like to have limit straps on there when I'm first setting it up and testing, not to extend too hard and essentially max out the shock too hard. So I want to put the straps in there just to give myself a little safety net, and not ruin shocks. You can see for the drive shaft loop, I have copied and pasted in the requirements and guidelines to be NHRA compliant of where and how to do your drive shaft loop. You can see here for the shocks, I'm looking at another $2,129. And then below here, I just have a few other things that I thought I was going to have to buy. So with the axles, this was originally the ones that weren't going to work. The separate retainers, the bearing seal and races, and the studs. But I ended up going with the quick performance ones instead because those actually work. I kept this down here just so I knew why. So you can see here I have it stated why it doesn't work. Just for kind of a history of myself, for some reason, if I forget or don't understand why I chose what I did, or if I need to go back for any reason, it's still here and I don't have to do all the work again.